The next function is the countifs. You might get a glimpse of what this means, given the S. The countifs function allows you to count cells in a range based on multiple criteria. The syntax of the countifs is the criteria range 1, the criteria range 2, then the criteria. This is the syntax of the countifs. The conditions are referred to as criteria. It can be criteria 1, 2, or more. And these criteria can be things like when a number is less than another number, or greater than another number, or the text is equal to something. The major difference between the countif and the countifs is the countif accepts only one condition, but the countifs accept multiple conditions. Now, the criteria range 1 and so on are the ranges where the function checks for the condition. So when we select the criteria range, you also need to select the criteria. Now, this criteria range is where the function will check for the conditions. Let's try to apply the countif function by looking for male accountants. Meaning, we'll start with the job title, that is accountants, and then we want to see, do we have male accountants? How many male accountants do we have? Now you start by typing your countifs function. You select the first criteria, that's the criteria range. Now what's the criteria inside this criteria range is accountant. The next criteria is the gender. We are looking for male accountant. We want to count how many male accountants do we have in this organization. Now you select the male. Now you select the gender. What are we looking for in the gender? We're looking for male. Well, you close the bracket and enter. It turns out we only have one male accountant in these organizations. Let's try to solve through manually and see if we can pick that out. So this is the first accountant, it's a female. This is the next accountant, is a male, which is why we have 1. Let's try another example by looking for how many female staffs are above 30 years. So you start by putting your function, countifs. The first criteria range is the gender. What are we looking for inside the gender? We are looking for females. The next criteria is the age. We are looking for females who are 30 and above. We want to count, we want to know how many females are 30 and above. And you type in greater or equal to 30, close, enter. Now we can see that we have just 3 females that are 30 years and above. We can check that to confirm. This is female 1, this is female 2, and this is female 3. So this means we have 3 females that are 30 years and above. Try to practice with more conditions and see if you would get an output to understand how this 3 function works. The next function we'll discuss is the count blank function. The count blank allows you to count blank cells in a range. It is written as equal to count blank. Just like the name implies, count blank, meaning counting blank cells. This function is very helpful to help find cells in a range that are empty. So the count blank function is very helpful to find empty cells in a range. Let's look at examples of how you can apply count blank. For example, you have this data and you want to verify if there are empty cells in it. The best function to use is count blank. Count blank would allow you to select the whole range to determine if there is an empty value. Count blank would also allow you to select column by column to determine if there is any empty cell in the column. Let's look at this column by column. So let's start from the employee ID column, equal to count blank. I'll select the whole employee column from A2 to A10. Now we can see we have 2 empty cells in employee ID. Let's look at it and see if we can dictate those empty cells. So we have 1 and we have 2. This means the count blank function gave us the correct answer. Let's look at the job title if there is an empty cell. Select the range, and it gives us 0. And looking at the job title, we can see that there is no empty cell in it. Let's try to count the whole data and see the total blank cells we have. You start by selecting. At this point, you should be familiar with drag and drop, how to select multiple cells, how to select multiple columns, which is what we're doing here. Now we started from A2 to I10. Close the bracket and enter. It's showing us that for the total data, we have 5 empty cells. We can start by counting it, and it's a very small value, so let's count manually and see. We have 1, we have 2, we have 3, we have 4, and we have 5. This means our count blank function is correct. Try to practice this and see if you understand how this function works.